Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be to everybody, and welcome to the Deen and Deals podcast, episode number 7. We're your hosts, Futhallah Hamid, and with me is my brother and co host, Mohammed Kiswani. And today we have the guy who, if I didn't meet this guy, if I didn't get close to this guy, if he didn't answer my LinkedIn
Ah,
DMs,
stop
I
it,
would have
stop
never
it.
been in sales. So, what's up, Amin?
How you doing,
Assalamu
Fathallah?
alaikum.
Good to see you. Alaikum salam. Good to be here. I really appreciate you guys having me on the podcast.
Bro,
Hey,
we
excited to
appreciate
have
you
you
making it
on.
on.
Excited to have you on, and finally nice to see you face to face in person after just talking on the phone before.
Yeah, no, likewise, man. Again, man, it's feels good to be here as the first guest. I mean, I'm honored. Fathallah, you're always talking me up, man. Mashallah, you guys are the ones doing
Well
it big,
deserved.
and I'm here to try to help and to try to support. So again, happy to be here.
Alhamdulillah, man. Alhamdulillah. No, we're so happy you were able to make it on. And what's crazy is Muhammad, when I first met him, I always used to tell him, like, this is like a few years back. I was like, bro, you and Amin are like very similar, but just like in, like the parallel universe type of thing. Like you guys are dads, you guys are soccer guys, you guys are sales guys. Like they're if you look, if there was a stat somewhere for how many guys share those unique attributes, there it's probably you guys are numbered. So
We're a niche
mashallah.
group.
Yeah.
I was hoping he'd also be an Arsenal fan, but turns out he's a Manchester United fan, which is,
Yeah, man.
not the worst thing in the world. But
Uh, yeah, maybe in another, like you said, alternate universe, but definitely not in this one.
Allah. Well,
Alhamdulillah.
I think for today's purposes, and we're really excited, I think, for the opportunity to, inshallah, if you do us the honor of joining us more in the future, we'd love to have you. But for today's purposes, I think, guys, like the one thing that I'm always inspired by when it comes to Amin, of the many things, is your story. And, you know, you said something the other day when we were talking. I want to let you say it. I don't want to steal that from you. But and I think that really characterizes your story and how you got into the game and how a lot of us sometimes it just like subhanallah it just happens, right? Tell us, kind of bring us back to the beginning. When did you first find that sales might have been the thing for you?
So believe it or not, my first ever job, I was 15 or 16 at the time, was at Radio Shack back when that was a thing.
Oh, no way! Shout
I
out
I
Radio
remember Radio
Shack.
recall
Shack.
Rest
Oh
in
my
peace.
God.
Radio Shack. Yeah, man, I remember getting paid like $7 an hour, and then anything on top of that, commission wise, was, if you sold accessories or insurance on some of the phones, and very first job, and at the time, that time, you're just looking for some extra cash. I mean, no one's really like soul searching for what their career is, when you're in high school. But I mean, I found it very natural, and I was comfortable and just talking to people and not being awkward. And a lot of the times when you're in retail, that's really all it takes. People are either window shopping or they're actually shopping, and the personality is a big plus, and it helped me kind of get ahead. But even as I continued my retail, I guess you can call it, career throughout high school and college, it still wasn't what I saw myself doing long term. I got a general business degree. At one point, my dad is in healthcare management. I thought I wanted to do that. Then I'm like, no, not really my thing. Let me just do a general business, maybe a little bit of public relations. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was graduating in a month and starting to panic a little bit, just applying to a bunch of random jobs. And a friend reached out. Actually, no. Yeah, no, a friend reached out, and a friend that went to UVA. He goes, "Hey, Amin, our dads were talking the other day, and he was telling my dad how, you've been looking for a job, and I got offered this tech sales job, at a company called Oracle, if you've heard of it." And at the time, I didn't like, I sort of heard of it, but I didn't really know anything about it. He said, "I'm not really going into tech. I'm going a different route. But if you want me to connect you with the recruiter, happy to." So I said,
And if
"Sure."
I could just ask, when was this? Just to give people perspective on, because
Yeah.
people, Oracle was that OG name for the longest time. So when did
Yep.
this all happen?
So this was in the spring of 2013.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
So
Nice.
spring of 2013, before tech sales became, kind of a buzzword type career, and
Right.
now everyone's trying to break into it. But subhanallah, he said, yeah, what do I have to lose? So he connects me with the recruiter. And I kid you not, I get an email saying, "Hey, are you available for a chat in 30 minutes?" And I go, "Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it." So we talk, we hit it off. He tells me about this new sales program that Oracle's starting for select college, select universities. At the time, my university wasn't even part of that list. It was UVA. I told him just full transparency. I mean, I go, I'm graduating from Mason. He said, "No worries, that might not be an issue." And I kid you not, after explaining how the program would work and you'd go to California to do training and it sounds exciting, his last question for me was, is this a job that you know, like you'd really want to do? And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." He said, "Okay, sounds good. I think you sound good and you're solid. Let me get back to you." Long story short, I'll spare you all the little details. A week later, I get an offer letter.
MashaAllah.
Subhanallah.
Yeah. So subhanAllah, one conversation, one instant, I found out he had this quota of people he had to hire, and I was at the tail end of that window. And I hit it off with the guy, and he offered me the opportunity that ultimately brought me into tech sales and alhamdulillah, created that trajectory of my life here 12, 13 years later.
I gotta ask a question here. So when you were young, what was your impression of sales? Had you like heard about sales as a career, and what do you have anything you wanted to be when you grew up? Like in your head, I wanted to be a certain like thing, doctor, engineer.
So I was interested in medical school up until maybe eighth grade. I had won the science fair and something my dad had helped me with, and I'm like, "Hey, this is cool." And then as you learn, what it really takes to get in there, it's like, yeah, that's not for me. I mean, I'm not the type of person you can throw in a room with some books and say, "Hey, study for 5 hours." I always knew that I wanted to do something relationship based. I thought maybe leaning a little bit toward healthcare. My dad is a healthcare executive and he's very well connected, and I'm not gonna lie, part of me had that in the back of my head where, oh, maybe my dad can somehow connect me or hook me up with a job. But when it comes to sales, I mean, like I mentioned before, I did it because it was easy to get into as a part-time job, make a little bit of extra cash. But I always thought of sales as this high pressure type of environment. People mostly associate us with car salesmen, which were nothing. I probably would have been terrible as a car salesman because it's that, high transaction within a short period of time environment, which is not really my style. So yeah, there is that common misconception of sales that I never really saw myself doing it as a career. But I was running out of time, and I got to live in California for training, and it was a big company, and I said, "Hey, why not?" So, and then the rest is history.
That's so awesome, mashallah. No, I love that. And I think the cool thing about your story is like you just kind of, you know, tawakkalt ala Allah from the get, right? Like your story kind of sounds like something that doesn't even happen anymore, right? Like these days, every college student or every person looking for a job, the first instinct isn't like that, the network that they could tap into, or just something that just takes place. So, mashallah, like it's crazy. And you, like you said, tech sales, I don't think was as popular or as like appealing as it is now. So, subhanallah, that's so interesting. No, thanks for sharing. And then
Yeah.
I guess from there you moved to California, right?
I did, yeah. I moved to California, did 2 months of training, and then we actually had an option. There were three hubs that we got to move to, and ultimately I chose to stay in the Bay Area. I liked
Wow.
the network there. I got to know the community. Of course, my dad knew somebody out there, so he connected me with him. But no, I spent almost 4 years there, and I felt like it was really what jump started, my career and my experience in the Silicon Valley.
I
That's
got a question
awesome.
for you, sorry, Futhallah. So,
Mhm.
nowadays with, everything being remote and then a lot of companies are kind of hiring in person and whatnot, what's your take on somebody starting, to get in sales today? Do you think it is like, I want to say sacrifice, but do you think they should be willing to relocate to one of the hubs to really start their career off in a good way? Or do you think if they're remote somewhere like somewhere else that they can just find and have the success if they're not willing to go in person?
I mean, again, everyone's situation is different. You have to weigh the pros and cons of what works for your personal situation. In a lot of cases, you know, you almost don't really have too much of a choice, especially if you have a family that you need to care for. But if you're single, if you're still living at home, you may not need to make that drastic of a move. Again, I think everyone's journey is different. For me, it was like every other, Middle Eastern kid, you can't wait to move out of the house, and you're under mom and baba's roof. And I was one of the few friends who still had a curfew while I was in college, and I'm like, man, you know, but for me, it was like, no, this is great. It's a good opportunity. Obviously, family was supportive of it, and frankly, I didn't have too many other options. So it worked for me. I think at the end of the day, I wasn't really thinking this at the time, but as we grow older and go through things in life, I think istikhara also has a huge role to play here, because I'm sure you guys can also share examples of how that's helped shape and guide a lot of the major decisions you've made in your life. So I say, might not like this answer, but I really think it just depends.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. I guess one thing I'm also curious about, the program that Oracle was doing at the time, was that like a junior AE, like immerse you, throw you right in, or was it like BDR track? Like, because you know how it is, right? Right now, if you usually you start as a business development rep, and then you work your way up, you'll get promoted to inside or small business and whatever. What was it? What was that for you?
So, as you guys know, typically SDR, BDR is that entry level role to break into tech sales. I was fortunate enough to get into this program that started us out at inside sales right off the bat, supporting field reps. And the way it worked, frankly, in the beginning is if you were mapped to a team that was just killing it, you got a piece of that pie and you made a lot of money.
Hmm.
And if you didn't, then that's just the nature of the game, as you guys know. So no, I was fortunate enough to get straight into inside sales, which had BDR elements to it in
Of
terms of
course.
the prospecting, and they did have certain metrics that you needed to hit in terms of outreach.
Yeah.
But overall, I was fortunate enough to it was healthcare life sciences. That was the first vertical, and the team that I was supporting actually did really well. So alhamdulillah, that risk came up front. Can I share kind of W-2 information here, if
I was
that
just about to say,
if that
can we
sort of
ask you
helps?
about that? If you're okay with us
Yeah,
asking,
yeah.
why not?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the only reason I say it isn't to kind of flex, look at how much money I made, but just to give you an idea of what's possible in tech sales, especially when you're not expecting it, right? So I remember the first year, so my base salary was 45K, and it was like a 40-60 split between the base and OTE. So if I hit my number, I would have made around, I think it was like 80, 85, something like that, which was, pretty attractive back in 2013. And my first year, my W-2 was 145K.
Wow.
My team
MashaAllah.
blew it out of the water, and I made it into that, kind of top 5% of inside sales reps in the region. And I'm not gonna lie, man. I mean, it felt good, but I was having major imposter syndrome, because, I know those around me were, people were showing love, of course, but there's a little chatter here and there. Oh, he didn't really do anything, and he just got lucky. And a lot of the times that's sort of the notion in sales when deals will fall on your lap. For example, I know we'll get into that a little bit later as to the gift that keeps on giving, that phrase that you
Yep.
like.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, risk is really like understanding risk is really a major component to this,
Hmm.
because one of the things I was thinking of when I was preparing for this episode is I feel like the sales career, it's like it's easier to understand the concept of risk through our career,
Yeah.
just because there are so many moving parts. There are so many things that can happen out of nowhere, right? Like I think of the احتسب,
Hmm.
that part, من حيث لا يحتسب, like that reminds me of my sales career, where I've had situations, I've had moments where an opportunity came out of nowhere, whether it was
And
a better job, whether it was a deal, whether it was a
yeah.
promotion, and there's no logic that can explain it.
And just to for listeners, I want to take a step back, and we've gotten some feedback at times that we need to explain acronyms or words in other languages.
Yes, yes.
But
Uh,
the word risk, sustenance, and I love that you use that, because people think, oh, making a lot of money. No, it's the rizq, right? It's a sustenance that Allah has, planned for you. So that's one element. Then can you talk to us? Can we dive a little deeper on the ayah, right? Because that's the framework or mindset that I think we should all lead with, salespeople or not.
Yes. One second, Fathallah.
Yeah,
The light turned off because of I wasn't moving, and I feel
no
like
worries. You're good.
second. There we go. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Here we go. Okay. So one more time, Fathallah, you wanted to dive into into the ayah?
Yeah, yeah. Just if you could give us kind of a background on what's the significance of the ayah to you, and why should anybody, you know, consider that ayah as their guiding light when we're talking about sales and this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So one thing I've been reminded of time and time through, whether you're going through a trial or you're trying to make sense of something is that as humans, we have to accept the fact that our understanding is limited in the grander scheme of things and how Allah's played everything out. So, and as salespeople, we typically sit down, we do strategy sessions, we try to think of every possible scenario, every possible outcome. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us here that, He will provide for you from ways that you can't even comprehend. So understanding that thoroughly and, having full faith in it, helps, helps kind of calm your heart,
Yeah,
helps sort of, we're human beings. We face anxiety when we don't have control over something and there's uncertainty, especially in an economy like this.
yeah,
You're always thinking about how I'm going to make it, how I'm going to provide, how I'm going to pay the bill at the end of the month.
yeah.
And I've heard stories crazier than experiences that I've been through where, subhanallah, when it was, when they played their part and they left the rest to God, unimaginable things, literally will kind of knock at your doorstep sometimes. Definitely something I've experienced,
Yeah.
and alhamdulillah, it's for kind of the blessing of being able to understand that, even though at certain moments it's not always easy to comprehend.
I want to actually double tap into what you said there about subhanAllah, like being in sales helps you like have a better understanding of what tawakkul means in a sense. Because you think about, yeah, it hits home a lot for me too, because you come from like a job, no matter how much you're paid, or it's like a salary. Hey, you're paid X amount of money, no matter what you do, you show up. As long as you do your job, that's what they'll come in your bank account. Whereas in sales, for a lot of people who get into it, including myself, I had left my job, my experience being like a full-time barber and a family business. And I knew how much I was making consistently to a job that similar to you, my first SDR job, sales development rep, entry level sales was like 38 and 39K. And it was like way lower than what I had before. And it's like, if you hit your number, you'll make that 70, 80K. And then knowing that like you do that for a couple of years, but like, you could make 300K after a few years because you blow out your number, mashallah, similar to you, 180% of quota, something like that. And knowing that you're gonna take the risk, you're gonna do the work, and knowing that you could totally blow it out and make more, but you also could just make your base like that. That that is a big thing, and I think that's a big reason why people don't want to get into sales, because they're scared of what if I only make the base. So
Yeah.
their lack of tawakkul, I would say lack of belief in themselves, but also belief that Allah is the provider, can prevent them from having that long-term success. What do you think about that? Is that like the right way to think about it?
I mean, even as salespeople, we use the term emotional roller coaster
Yeah,
because
the
you'll
waves.
have exactly you'll have a quarter where it's a desert, or you'll have an entire year where you feel like nothing is really working, and then I'm sure we've all thought about this at some point where it's like, man, is like sales really it for me? Should I consider something else? I've considered customer success midway through my sales career. I'm like, it's a
I
little,
remember that.
80/20, so it's a little bit more conservative.
Yeah.
And then you kind of wait things out, and you have that element of tawakkul, and you have a killer year or a deal falls in your lap, and suddenly now you're like, yeah, I love sales. This is great. So despite that emotional roller coaster, for me, being in sales for 12 years, despite that, alhamdulillah, I've never been hungry, like in the literal sense. I've never
Alhamdulillah.
not I've never not been able to pay my bills. yeah, were there times where I wasn't able to save as much and that I have to sometimes pull back from excess things that I enjoyed? Yeah. But I was never in a position where I'm like, man, this is bad. I gotta pick up a second, third, fourth job. Alhamdulillah, it allowed me to get married almost 8 years ago.
Alhamdulillah.
It allowed me to eventually buy my first home, bought, alhamdulillah, several cars that I was able to pay in cash and, not wanting to deal with any sort of, interest or getting an older car. So alhamdulillah,
Mashallah.
I've seen that barakah through trusting the process, for lack of a better way to say it.
I love that. I love that because it's like I was talking to somebody about this literally last night about, you know, it's like, oh, you don't want to be enslaved to the dunya. You don't want to be enslaved to this worldly life and really have that kind of akhirah, that afterlife mindset. But the only way to do that is to actually beat the game that we're in now, right? Like you have to be somebody who's like, okay, the system is, let's say you could say the system is skewed against you or whatever, or the system wants you to move in certain ways. But that's the beautiful thing about this career path, bro. Like, is like you can get a check in your bank account, ACH 20K, and then all of a sudden, wow, like all the
Yeah.
hustling, all the cold calls, whatever it is, like it was all worth it. I don't know of a lot of other jobs that can do that, bro. I don't know, unless you're an executive or a doctor. Shout out all the doctors out there. Like there isn't that, it doesn't exist. So that's one thing. Another thing I really like that you said, that I just kind of want to peel back a little bit on, was the tawakkul piece in this role in comparison to others, right? I think when I think of, say, like an HR person or IT or whatever, they don't know that the thing that's clearing their checks is maybe like the business that their company is doing from a random company, like they're engaged in business with a company that does healthcare or whatever it is, or like they'll never see that. Whereas for us, it's like, oh no, I'm getting paid because of the deal I closed with this specific company or agency or whatever. So that kind of like almost being able to see through that green screen or whatever you want to call it, like
Yeah,
that's
the
that's
output.
also a
Yeah.
unique thing. Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
alhamdulillah, that's
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, I mean, there's to your point, yeah, you can more directly see the fruits of your labor, right?
yeah, yeah,
And then, kind of going into the and again, I'm rarely a guy that says things that come off profound to people, but going back to the whole the sales
not
is a
true.
gift. The sales is a gift that keeps on giving. One element of what I meant by that was sometimes, I mean, you'll work really, really hard to develop a territory, to build relationships, and things just won't happen. Timing won't work out. And then territories will change and you'll shift to something else. And then whoever went into your old territory, now that deal falls into their lap, right? And vice versa. It's happened many times where deals fell into my lap, and I'm sure you guys can kind of relate to that, where it's, hey, that didn't just happen. There was someone that spent time reaching out, cold calling, prospecting, breaking down doors,
Yeah,
building relationships. That's one element of it. Another aspect of it is that, alhamdulillah, one of the things that I love to do for a long time, and I want to plug in Tech Steps here, which is coaching business that I started a year ago that helps people break into tech sales, learn all the secrets, learn from a lot of the mistakes that I made. Was just like my friend who had no business doing sales called me and said, hey, there's this opportunity, and then look what it did for me. um I've always had like a passion for keeping my eyes and ears open for opportunities. Because after that first year, when I had that 145K W2, I'm like, dude, this is awesome, man. Like I know a lot of people that are way smarter than me, and they're struggling to find a job, and their personalities are great. They can do this as well. So whenever I'd hear of, hey, by the way, we're opening headcount, or if you guys know anybody, please feel free to refer them to me directly, or I met someone at another company, a partner who I built a relationship with, is, hey, if you know anybody. So every time I'd hear something like that, I tap into my network. Hey, anyone looking for a job, I can connect you, I can introduce you. And going back to the gift that keeps on giving, alhamdulillah, I've been able to help a lot of people break into tech, maybe a few years after me, and they actually ended up surpassing me.
MashaAllah.
They climbed the ladder way quicker. They went into management, and that doesn't bother me. I mean, everybody has their own journey, and to me, that makes me happy because it's like, man, this guy was studied something completely different and had a completely different, and now he's been in sales for 5 6 years, and he's bringing in 300 plus k, and his reputation is off the charts, and he's also been able to help other people as well. And I think about that, and it just makes me happy because it's, a we're helping, our community, and it's that type of baraka, and I guess karma, if you will, for some other people, always comes back to you, alhamdulillah.
I want to touch on that too because subhanallah, as I'm hearing you talk, I can hear and sense the genuine, aspect of wanting to help others. You see someone succeed that you helped that maybe surpassed you, alhamdulillah, maybe in like earnings. Does it make you, it reminds me of the hadith, subhanallah, man yuridillah, like anjad, yani that's when you have that, some people call it karma, and we see that in our normal life, even if you're not applying it in the aspect of Islam. But, when someone, does good, it comes back to him. And I love how you talk about that too, because you can see that in your success, mashallah. You saw something great. You're like, well, I'm not the smartest guy out there. Somebody I know someone that could do better than me, and you wanted to go help them get into. And now this is what you're doing with your business. I think that's a beautiful thing. And going back to what you're saying about bluebirds, I mean, that's, you didn't say the actual word, but we call those like bluebird deals, right? They kind of come in your lap. It's an inbound lead. They looked at it 4 years ago at your company, and now they're back. And I was thinking about that. I was like, subhanallah, it's maktub. Whatever is written for you to be, it's going to happen. And just like, I've been in situations where like I've been at a company, I work a deal for so many years, and I leave. And a year later, I'm like, I hear from a former colleague, hey, I just closed them. They came back. And after all your hard work, I listened to all 7 of your calls, and they just bought. Like, it goes both ways. So
Yeah,
subhanallah, it's the concept of when you rely and know that nothing will get to you, that unless it's written for you, you don't have any worry, because it's like, hey, if it's meant to be, it's going to be. Let me just do the
Yep.
work, and I'm going to get it, even if it's not my work. Right. So,
100%, 100%. No, I mean, that's a beautiful concept, right? And again, I mean, I want to go back to kind of the human element here, because I am definitely not the best example of someone who's always grounded, and that belief is always calming me down, because in the moment, man, it's like one of those things when you're going through it, and you're miserable, and then your religious friend comes through, and he's like, bro, just have faith and have taqwa and Allah. It's like, bro, get out of here, you know what I mean? But no, I mean, after you know and I'm not saying I'm only 34, but after seeing a lot, after being in it for over a decade, I can attest to these things. And the goal of growing and maturing is to use those experiences to help shape you and help further ground you, as you continue growing, inshallah.
So one thing I love that you shared that. I just want to get back into just take a second to get back into story time, because what's very interesting is like you go to Oracle, you did your stint there, you put in the work, then tell us what happened after that, because a lot of times when people leave from coast to coast, they don't come back to that other coast. Muhammad did the opposite, right? He left from Seattle, he's on the east coast, the best coast, and now I don't think he's going back, but you came back to the east coast. So tell us more about kind of like, okay, what were some learnings in that process, especially because I think one thing that I always look to brothers like you and Muhammad about is like, you guys are trailblazers for the guys like myself. Like, you guys are a handful of years ahead of us, so it's like, us, earlier people in the game can look to you and take some benefit. So that's would love to kind of like take it that direction. What happened after some time at Oracle?
Yeah, so I spent almost 3 years at Oracle, and I finally hit a point where I started to understand the game a little bit. I started to see and feel the politics. I started to see what it took to either go into management or to get into the field, and it was very political, and there were a lot of organizational changes at the time, and I felt like I sort of plateaued. And I wasn't complaining. I still had a job. I was keep bringing in a somewhat steady paycheck. But what 2+ years at Oracle did for me was it let recruiters and other people know, hey, this guy's worked for a legitimate company. He's
Mhm.
credible now. So I started to get an influx of, uh, you know, interview opportunities at a bunch of startups, mid-sized companies, and it started to kind of pique my interest when I started to hear what are some of these salaries that are being offered. It's like, wow, I can go up 20, 30K in my base if I get this job. So I said, you know what, I want to, and as for whoever knows Oracle, no, and no disrespect to anyone there, but people drop like flies, and we'll look to get into that next opportunity. And they say the grass is never greener, but again, I'm gonna take a shot at Oracle. The grass is usually greener. No offense to anyone at Oracle. I mean, it did a lot for me, and I'm very thankful for everyone I worked there. But I ended up getting an opportunity to work for a much smaller company. They were a Salesforce partner. It was cloud contact center technology, and based in San Francisco. So British-based company. Mohammed knows how much I love the Premier League. So the fact that it
Mm.
was in the UK, and we did training there, that was enough to sell me. But alhamdulillah, good opportunity, higher base salary. And then a year into the job, they hired a new chief revenue officer, and they wanted to change things around, and they laid off half of the sales force in on the West Coast team.
Wow.
And being that I was there for just about a year, I was let go. I always knew that I'd go back home, born and raised on the East Coast in the DC area. Always knew I would go back eventually. I didn't think it would be that soon. But subhanAllah, I mean, I felt like that was an opportunity. I searched for other jobs in the Bay Area. It's not like I completely ruled it out. Nothing really worked out that I felt was worth it. I did a little bit of Lyft and Uber on the side. You have to try to do everything you can to make ends meet.
I respect that.
And
I didn't know that about you.
yeah, and by the way, this is when like Uber and Lyft were popping, man. Like you could,
Mm.
if you grinded on certain weekends, they had certain incentives where you made decent money. But anyway, I mean, you have to do what you have to do. So did that for a few months while searching, and subhanallah, I ended up for the holidays. I was like, you know what, maybe this is a time where I can go back home, settle, save some money, not paying rent, and just start looking for opportunities back, in my original home base. Um, and subhanAllah, I mean, going back to the tawakkul and Allah's plan, if I had not left at that time, I wouldn't have bumped into my now wife at the. So it's funny, I stopped in Chicago on my way back, and it just so happened it was the Mass ICNA convention. And I bumped into
Subhanallah.
I bumped into my wife there, and that was kind of the initial moment that sort of got us connected to each other. And subhanallah, the rest is history. So I ended up getting a job.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, I ended up getting a job back home, and here I am. I've been back since 2017.
MashaAllah.
Subhanallah.
MashaAllah. Two
Yeah.
things, two reflections on that. One, you bumped into your wife at ICNA, but two, I bumped into you at one of the ICNAs once too, believe it or not. But
Wow.
in the 2017 one too. Anyways,
Uh, the
um,
conference the conference that keeps on giving.
shout out ICNA. Another thing that I think is really interesting, bro, about what you shared is a handful of things. First of all, bro, I think one thing you share in this experience of getting laid off and, trying to find what's next is you weren't like there isn't like there's a saying in Arabic about like there isn't anything that's like there isn't a shameful way to make your money, right? Like a lot of people, it's like they get laid off or they're trying to find work. Like, oh, I can't do Door. I have a degree. I can't do DoorDash. I can't do Uber, Lyft. I can't do. No, no, no. I'm gonna. It pays me more to sit down and just apply. Meanwhile, maybe some of these folks are only applying to like one or two jobs at a coffee shop and drinking the coffee and wasting their money. But what I love about what you're saying is it's like now again, I didn't know this about you, but you were like, all right, well, I got bills to pay. I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna work, and I'm still gonna apply and network. And knowing you, you probably picked up some tech guys here and there and did some networking. But what I love the most is that I feel like sometimes we take some time to understand that a door is shut. And I love that you didn't like, keep knocking when it was shut. You gave it a shot and then khalas, tawakkalt ala Allah. And that's such an important thing, bro. Like that's in applying for jobs, in marriage pursuits, in deals, right? Like sometimes if you keep knocking, it the door's just not going to open. The customers went with your competitor on a 3-year plan, and they are just so happy, and you can't beat them, right? So I think that's those are really amazing reflections, bro. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I'll be a little vulnerable here. I mean, I wish I could apply that concept of what you just said to my personal life a little bit more, because sometimes, to your point, you keep knocking, you keep trying, and because we're always used to at least having an expectation or controlling the outcome, sometimes it's sort of it's hard to let go after really exhausting options and saying, I did my part, tawakkaltu ala Allah. So,
Yeah.
you know, kind of reminder from you to apply some of what I do professionally in in my personal life.
Yeah. No. No.
Yeah, life's all about reflection. So, subhanAllah, when we talk about this more, I'm probably going to listen to this episode again. And some of the things I even said myself, or you said, it's going to remind me to apply it again. So, alhamdulillah. I do want to touch on one thing, subhanAllah. I feel like as sellers, sometimes there's a stigma where like you don't want to say that you got laid off or maybe put on like a performance plan. And I've been there, where I've been put on a PIP myself and I've crushed some years myself, made P Club, but I've also been part of a layoff. I'm curious if you can go back and share how you felt when you were part of that British company layoff where you've been there a year, new CRO came in, and he just like they decided to like go half the sales force. You were included in that. How did that make you feel? Did you doubt yourself at all? Like, should I stay in sales? Did it damage kind of your mindset, or did that make you stronger?
Initially, it definitely hurt. It's a huge, it's a huge hit to the ego as well, because the first thing that comes to mind is, man, like there were some people that didn't get laid off, and maybe they didn't think I was good enough for them, and that walk out of the office back to the car is is brutal, man, because you're like, man, where do I go from here? Who do I call? How do I, where do I go from here? And again, I was looking. Another thing, Fathallah, maybe you didn't know is, yeah, I mean, I was looking for other AE roles, account executive roles, but I was also looking for analyst roles. I was trying to expand my options, where I'm like, hey, this is, maybe this isn't really as stable as I thought it was. Maybe I'll never have another 145K a year again trying to pursue this thing that's just not happening. So yeah, no, it was definitely something that was hard to take up front, and I was much younger then as well. So, with only a few years of professional work experience under my belt, you're obviously a lot more emotional, right? But I mean, ultimately, sticking through it, and obviously with the tawfiq of Allah, because we do our part, but everything ultimately comes from Him. I was able to get back on my feet, and I was able to kind of tap into a community, into a network, into a family that I knew was always there and supportive of me. So I was, to say the least, fortunate, maybe a lot more than other people who maybe in the United States, without really knowing many people, or their family might be back home in the Middle East where they don't have that safety net
Yeah.
to go back and not pay rent. So alhamdulillah, I had those blessings, and but I kind of, I stuck through it, and ultimately now looking back, definitely helped. I've definitely had some rough moments, but it helped build resilience in the long run. And I wouldn't have it any other way. SubhanAllah, everything happens according to Allah's plan, and He is the best of planners.
Subhanallah. That's
Alhamdulillah.
crazy. You went from almost leaving the industry to, does that say sales club on your hat?
The
Oh, much.
little flex there. I mean,
Oh, mashallah.
alhamdulillah, man. It's a blessing. Yeah. Sales club, for those of you who might be listening, is a lot of tech companies do this, where if you either achieve your quota, or you're in a top, percentile of people who hit their number, you get to essentially go on an all expenses paid trip to, somewhere, typically somewhere in the Bahamas, the Caribbean, wherever it is. But alhamdulillah, I got to attend that last year, out of
Mashallah.
hitting my
Alhamdulillah.
number at work there. Alhamdulillah, very, very fortunate and blessed to be able to take care, to enjoy those little perks that you get from time to time.
Mashallah. That's amazing, bro. And I remember actually, guys. So one of your first members of the program. Although I like to consider myself the first member of Tech Steps because you got me in the game, and
Uh,
we could
you're
kind of.
you're the OG, bro. You're the inspiration behind it all.
No, but one of your first like official, I guess students of the program, Omar, shout out Omar, is You texted both of us when you were at club. You know, you got that nice tan on you and everything, and you sent such an inspiring message. I could pull it up here, but I don't want to, get unfocused. But I remember you're like, bro, you told us, you know, this moment is so special because it took me so many years of ups and downs, and like years where I didn't feel like sales was the right thing for me, and years where I got so close but you know it got missed, or you know got snubbed, this that whatever territories, to finally achieve it. Like subhanallah, like that's such a beautiful thing. So I appreciate that. And I guess
Yeah.
before we kind of bring things for a landing, um you get to DC, you you know, again, meet somebody for the work stuff. I'd love to kind of crack into that a little bit, and then we can inshallah, you know, kind of, you know, come full circle. I think that would be great.
Yeah. So I essentially I come back to DC. I work for a small company. I wouldn't say it was my first choice, but it was one of the few that, I got an offer. Pay was decent, mid-sized company, finance, cloud software. Shout out to all the finance folks. Not really, not really my cup of tea. I don't, I'm talking to controllers and CFOs all day. But I did that for a year. And then one thing I want to highlight is I went through my second layoff a year
Subhanallah.
into that role. Yeah. So, and here's the crazy part as well is I was engaged at the time and my Ketbik tab was in like a month after I got laid off.
Wow.
So that one was even harder to swallow than the first one because like, hey, I have I'm about to get married. You know, I have amazing in-laws who probably would have been very, very understanding. But when you're trying to impress and you want to put your best foot forward, it's like, what are they gonna think? I want to shout out my wife here because she is incredible and she's a lot more grounded than I am. She was the first person that I called as I walked away from the building into my car, and I was like, I've got some bad news. I got laid off. And subhanAllah, one of the things that really helped me, and it kind of goes back to how you always have to trust Allah and to try to think about the bigger picture, is the way that she reacted when I told her. Instead of, you know, expecting something along the lines of what are we gonna do? And we still have to pay for all of this stuff. She was calm and collected, and she said, "Ahmed, it's all good. Like I know you. You know the game. Inshallah, you're gonna be good. Inshallah, khair. Don't worry about it." And that reaction, I'll never forget it, was something that not only calmed me down,
Mm,
but also a month into, making one of the biggest decisions in your life, I'm like, I picked the perfect person, right?
inshallah.
And so, subhanAllah, man, that moment right there helped me bring back those thoughts and feelings about tawakkul. And long and behold, I'll spare the details, which is another crazy story of how everything went down, but I ended up getting opportunity at Tableau,
Can you
which
tell us
then
that? That's the because here's my thing. I love this story. I love all your stories, bro. You're a good storyteller.
Great
Um,
storyteller. I've been enjoying this.
man, I appreciate you guys.
reason I want you to share this, bro, is because the tried and true methods, the methods of, I'm not calling you old, but the methods of old, the methods of getting out there and meeting people in today's world where so many people are like talking about not being able to find jobs, especially new graduates. I think people need to hear that. So I want to double tap just a little bit on that. Could you share more on that?
Sure. So the way, again, it was another right place, right time. You got to go out and put yourself out there sort of moment. One of my friends, his name is Justin. Shout out Justin. He was also one of the other AEs that got laid off. So we've been texting, how's it going? You getting interviews? What's going on? So he texts me one night and he says, "Hey, this company Tableau, they're having like a sales, like a sales happy hour in DC on Tuesday night. I unfortunately am going to be out of town, but you should go if you want me to." And I told him and I said, man, it's a Tuesday, DC traffic, 6 o'clock. And his response is what got me to get up and reach out to the recruiter and go. He said, "Man, it sounds like, it sounds like you're chilling, it sounds like you don't really want a job." And as soon as he said that, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, you know what? He's right. What do I got to lose? Long
Yeah.
story short, I go there. I hit it off. I hit it off with who became my boss, and she goes, hey, I have one more spot on my team, and I'll be in
Subhanallah.
touch.
Subhanallah.
Fast forward 2 weeks, I was in the office for my final interview. After leaving, I get a call 2 hours later from the recruiter saying, "How would you like to work for Tableau?" And alhamdulillah, it was a much better opportunity, a much better company, a cooler product. And I'm like, hey, I here's my start date, but I have my honeymoon planned the week after. They said, no problem, it's all good. Congratulations. I think they even hooked me up with like a nice welcome wedding gift.
Oh
And
my God.
Wow,
alhamdulillah,
mashallah.
everything working out. So the barakah of marriage is real for all you single brothers and sisters out there. The barakah of marriage is definitely real, and
MashaAllah.
yeah, yeah, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And if you like, subhanallah, like Tableau holds a special place in my heart because I was just there for the past 3 years. I wouldn't have made it in Tableau without Amin. Because he was my referral, but he wasn't just my referral. Like, it's funny, I made a post about referrals yesterday. We could get into it. You were not just any referral. You were like the most proactive coach where it's like you probably if you put that kind of time into a deal, maybe you'd make more money the time you invested in me, bro. And the thing is, like, I think from your story to the story of how I got in the game, I think what people can learn is that if you take the step towards Allah, Allah really comes running to you, right? In the figurative sense, right? Like your buddy Justin who called you and is like, man, just oh, I guess you don't need a job, right? Like the fact that you got up, you put in the work. Oh, there's one spot on my team. Like, how many opportunities for those looking, for those trying to hustle and find deals, whatever it is, how many like how many get up and go find your risk opportunities are you away from like having that one thing that's going to change your life? That's I think what I love from your story is like you just never know. It's full on tawakkul. It's full on like قُل لَن يُؤْمِنُونَ, right? Like Allah tells the Prophet ﷺ, say,
Sallallahu alayhi wa
nothing is going to harm us. Nothing's going to touch us. No good, no bad. Nothing is going to happen to us unless Allah has willed it. So let the mu'minun have full tawakkul in Allah. It's written. No matter what you do, it's gonna hit you, right? The good, the bad, the in the middle. So that's what I love about it. And like, I think the beautiful thing that listeners can take away is that sometimes you're just not gonna know. Sometimes you're just gonna have to take that step and let Allah decide for you. And if we operate on that model, whether you work in sales, whether you're in IT, whatever it is, especially in this climate that we're in, you can never go wrong. So thank you so much for sharing that, bro.
No, 100%. And I mean, not to be redundant here, but money comes and goes. We need to realize that. I think step one is to check your relationship with Allah, like you said, and just to really, really know yourself and to let every ego, every bias aside, because it's hard for us sometimes to accept what we think, we like if we feel like we deserve more, it's hard for you to quote unquote stoop down and do that grunt work, right? So no, you summed it up beautifully, and I couldn't agree more.
Barakallah feek, bro. And then I know we're getting short on time. I think inshallah that means that we had a good discussion and we have more to come. I think wrapping it up, obviously you did your time at Tableau. Tableau gets bought out by Salesforce. You finally make it to the field position. What's one thing you would tell, you wish every young seller understood that kind of like at your not again, not calling you old, but you're a vet in the game at this point, bro. Like what's that one advice you'd give every seller that you wish you knew?
I say pray and hope for the best, of course, but always be prepared for the worst, right? I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but like a successful Muslim is a smart and is a thinking Muslim, right? You have to be strategic. You don't want to be caught off guard with things. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who ultimately provides, and he's the one who ultimately handles every single situation. But I want to focus on that doing your part, tying your camel element to it, right? And a lot of that comes down to obviously, time. We want things very quickly. خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ مِنْ عَجَلٍ. We want to keep using ayat that man was created out of hastiness. We always want to be quick. Take that time to always plan. Don't don't spend all your money in one place. Save for a rainy day. And again, just understand that a lot of these aspects come down to expectation. If you're always expecting the best to happen, then you're going to be disappointed ultimately, right? If you adjust and lower your expectation and don't compare yourself to people who Allah may have maybe has blessed more in the moment than you, that groundedness is I think really key there. And just to understand how short our time is on this earth, I think brings a lot more peace to every affair. And the more you do that, and the more you have that mindset, the easier it is when those hard times come for you to feel more connected with Allah. So hope that answers the question, but it's something that I wish I knew, but sometimes that comes with time and with age. But for all you younger folks out there, take these hacks, learn from the many, many, many mistakes that I've made. And you know, one of my mentors, it's like his catchphrase, referring to Yasser, is he always says, the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. Anybody who's gone through a really, really difficult situation at some point will look back. It was like, man, I remember that. Look, it's past. So always kind of keeping that phrase in mind. I replay it in my head. The best is yet to come, and believe in Allah and strengthen your faith, and you can never lose.
I mean, I've been taking some notes on the side here as you're talking. I have so many quotes that I just heard from you today. I'm just like, I gotta just put that on the wall somewhere because mashallah, you dropped some wisdom today, and like I've been learning a lot selfishly. So it's been very fun to interview you today and have you on the podcast.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
Before we wrap up, we want to give you one more chance to kind of plug in Tech Steps and kind of just shout out what that is specifically for anybody interested, so we can help people who are interested also benefit from that program.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Tech Steps is essentially a 6-week program. It can be done in a cohort setting, it can be done on a one-on-one. But essentially, it's taking years of trial and error, taking years of research, of surveys of other sales leaders, and coming up with what I believe is the essential elements you need to know to break into tech sales in terms of how to show up, how to answer the simple yet very crucial question of tell me about yourself, how to be prepared for what kinds of questions you're going to be asked, the etiquette of that. How do you brand yourself online? I need to learn from you guys on your LinkedIn game. You guys do a phenomenal job. How do you market yourself online? You're not only selling products or services, you're essentially selling yourself and you're putting your best foot forward. How do you use your authentic and genuine experience to do that in a natural way? And then the other element of it is, alhamdulillah, I've been blessed with a very rich and heavy tech network that I am happy to share with anyone who needs it, especially if they put in their foot forward, they do their homework. I always tell people this, my network is your network, and it's all about right place, right time, and so alhamdulillah, I put together this essentially this curriculum minus all of the fluff that people will try to teach you or oversell you. And alhamdulillah, I've had a lot of success in helping people break in, and I'm always trying to improve what resonated, what didn't. And yeah, techsteps.io is my website if you want to check it out. I have a lot of the details there, including my business number that you can text at any time. I try to make it really easy to access me, but even if it's just a chat and you don't know what you want to do, always happy to hop on the phone, meet up for coffee, and serve you as best as I can, inshallah.
MashaAllah, beautiful. Guys, techsteps.io. And then we'll also drop a link below in the YouTube and the Spotify as well, so you guys can
Appreciate it.
access it. Mashallah, beautiful. This has been my favorite recording to date. You're our first episode, mashallah, and you set
First
the ball
guest.
really high. You set the ball really high. So inshallah, yeah. Awesome.
No, inshallah, you guys will. You guys are doing great, and I had a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys having me on, and I guarantee you guys will have a lot more experience and cooler people on here. But again, it's an honor to be here, and truly, I love you guys for the sake of Allah.
Allah barik. A beautiful conversation. And so for the listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. That is going to be a wrap for today's episode of Deen and Deals. I just want to say one thing. We did notice that about 70% of our viewers are not subscribers. So if you could take a moment, if this episode resonated with you, if you found value, if you want to hear more, great content like this, please subscribe on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you choose to listen. It really helps us to grow faster and get more amazing guests as well. So until next time, stay true to your deen, keep working your deals. Inshallah, we'll see you soon. Jumaa Mubarakah, happy Friday, and assalamu alaikum.